Dr. Teitelbaum is one of the most frequently quoted energy and pain medical authorities in the world. He is the author of 12 books, including From Fatigue to Fantastic, Diabetes is Optional, The Complete Guide to Beating Sugar Addiction, The Real Cause, Real Cure, The Fatigue and Fibromyalgia Solution, and also the popular free smartphone app called Cures A to Z. He is the lead author of 8 studies and 3 medical textbook chapters on effective treatment for fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. Dr. Teitelbaum appears often as a guest on news and talk shows nationwide, including Good Morning America, The Dr. Oz Show, Oprah and Friends, CNN, and Fox News Health. Here's a clip from today's show.
We can spend hours explaining, but that's basically what it is. It's insulin resistance is a response to too much sugar. The sugar is the fuel that your cells use for energy. Insulin, it's kind of like you have furnaces in your cells that burn sugar for energy. And the insulin is the key that opens up the furnace, so you can go ahead and pop the sugar molecules in and burn them for energy. What happens now when you're insulin resistant? When you have diabetes, sugar can't get into the cells to be burned for energy, so it builds up in the blood. That means your brain cells are getting starved for energy. And so at the same time, they're starving for energy while gasoline or the sugar is flooding your system. That's the problem. So you're going to, number one, you're starving your brains for the energy. Number two, you're increasing the tendency to inflammation, which is not good for the brains.
Are you looking for a good probiotic? Seed DS1 Daily Synbiotic has both prebiotic and probiotic. It supports digestive health, heart health, skin health, and gut health, including those who suffer with IBS. Their products are clinically studied and third-party tested for quality, and I think you'll be impressed with their eco-friendly packaging. Click the link in the show notes and use my code FORGIVEN for 15% off your first month supply. Thank you for joining me tonight, Dr. Teitelbaum. How are you tonight?
Doing fantastic here in Hawaii, and aloha everybody. For those of you with diabetes or diabetes pain, I invite you to call your friends or text them anyway. Tell them to sign on. We are going to teach you how to effectively treat it and how to get rid of nerve pain while you're at it. So welcome everybody.
Well, that's a great introduction for sure. And now I know that I've seen you on quite a many podcasts, or heard you on podcasts, seen you on a lot of webinars and seminars and things like that over the years. So why don't you tell my listeners again a little bit about yourself and how you became so passionate about fatigue and diabetes?
Well, it's interesting. Back in 1975, I had just started med school. I was maybe a year into it, and I was paying my own way through med school. My dad had passed on, so I paid my way through college. I was working and doing school and doing all the other stuff at the same time, and came down with this nasty viral infection. And basically, if you've heard of long COVID, I had the equivalent of post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and that was back in the days when there was no such thing. The CFS, fibromyalgia, that's just crazy people talking. So my professors couldn't do anything. I couldn't work, which meant I was homeless, sleeping in parks. And it's funny, it's like God put a holistic homeless medical school sign on my park bench. I had never heard about natural medicine. I had never heard about any of this kind of stuff. But all these different healers and nutritionists and, acupuncturists, naturopaths. I mean, I've never even heard of such a thing. Naturopaths? What? Huh? How's, a good Jewish boy going to be a healer, which meant being an MD. And it's funny, from there in Tulsa, just kind of a stone's throw from Orly Roberts, actually. The people there were very sweet. I learned that there's a lot more that I could do that I, hadn't learned in med school. As being on the other side of the white coat, I thought my life was crushed because I couldn't be a doctor. I had to drop out of med school and homeless. And all of that, just like everything in life, turned out to be this incredible blessing. I took what God gave me in terms of all these different teachers walked into my life, put together a protocol where I was able to recover, and have spent pretty much almost a half a century now reading, writing, teaching about effective treatments. for things that medicine just is awful at, like chronic disease. And the thing is, I'm a science geek. I mean, they used to call me the Phantom in med school because 2, 3, 4 in the morning I'd be in the medical library just going through the medical stacks, pulling studies off the shelves, and realizing that what was in the research was very different than what I was being taught in classes. And I finally realized that basically what I'm being taught as a doctor is basically slick pharmaceutical advertising masquerading as science. So I like all of the, I like the power that we're given to heal as physicians, but it's just one tool in the toolkit. It's like the hammer. And medicine wants to make sure that's the only tool. No screwdrivers, no wrenches, no pliers, no saws, just hammers, damn it. Everybody else is a quack. So you start to, when you look through the actual science instead of the advertising masquerading as science, you learn that there are all these things that can help. Diabetes is one of those. And so we'll talk more about that today, but chronic pain, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, a host of things that your doctor says, sorry, I can't help you. Tell them thank you for being honest and go find somebody who can. We'll get you started today on how to get your health back.
Yeah, that's great. I think that everybody that I've come in contact with since I started my healing journey and my husband's healing journey, and just since I started getting curious before I even now in my line of work, I never thought about that either. You trust your doctors, and and I'm not saying what they say sometimes isn't excellent information, but yeah, it just seemed like there was only the one path, and to me there had to be something more. And then when I found out there is so much more that you can do, and that we really do have a lot of control, it was very empowering to me, actually. And refreshing, honestly. And then once I started to feel the effects from taking back some of my own health, and it was that too was very refreshing and very therapeutic. And I can't believe how wonderful you can feel. And usually most people like myself, we all end up in this space because we've had some kind of journey. We've gotten sick, or a loved one has gotten sick with an illness. And that's what starts our own secret mission, where we become our own little detectives as to figure out how to fix things or put things back or help the situation. And I think there's a lot of other practitioners and people out there that have done the same thing, and hopefully there's going to be some more after today.
Absolutely. What you'll find is, people ask, how did you become holistic doctors? Get involved in these things. It's being on the other side of the white coat, having yourself or a friend or family member who was in the situation we were in. And doctors are good people. I'd never met anybody, including in the pharmaceutical industry, who's a bad person. They're all really good people. But it's religion, and it's religion based on dollars. So a lot of what your doctor has to offer can be good, but they won't know the difference, whether it is or not. And when, like I'm going to say it again, if they say they can't help you, tell them thank you and go find somebody who can. If they say, I don't know what's wrong with you, you're crazy, especially to your family members, that is abusive. And don't tolerate that kind of abuse.
Yeah, and definitely, like you said, go find someone who is, I think that's what people don't realize, is that they can fire their doctors. You
call them out too.
It doesn't matter what kind of practitioner you have. They're taking your money, and basically, even if it goes through insurance, they're taking your money. You hired them to help you, and so you have every right to fire them and find somebody else who you like and is willing to help you figure out what's going on.
Exactly. The doctor works for you. Now, don't expect your doctor to do something they're not comfortable with. That
Right.
would be inappropriate. But that doesn't mean that you can't say no. If your car mechanic says, I don't believe in brakes. Well, I need brake pads. It's like, there's no such thing as brakes. It's like, alrighty then, but bye, So if they don't believe in natural remedies, that's their religion. But it is, medicine is a wonderful tool, but it's a god-awful religion. That's after 50 years in medicine, I can say that. So, anyway.
Yeah. Well, and right before when I was starting my health journey, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And immediately they wanted me to send me to a rheumatologist to get on some medication. And at the time had already, like I said, I just started my health journey. And so I was like, oh goodness, I was already trying to get off some other medication. I thought the last thing I want to do is go putting another medication on when I'm trying to get off of some of these other medications, which I did. But then miraculously enough, as soon as I changed my diet and lifestyle and started doing some other things, I literally have no rheumatoid arthritis anymore. Like, it's kind of funny how I gave the body what it needed, and it works magnificently now compared to how it used to work.
Absolutely. Wendy, can I give a couple thoughts for the viewers out there on rheumatoid arthritis? Number one, they do have the biological agents, and the rheumatoid arthritis is one of those places where it's better to step in and prevent problems. So if they're saying methotrexate, maybe not so much. There's all these different things, even the ibuprofen kind of stuff. You can use it. The natural remedies, you talked about lifestyle, which you'll talk about, and your listeners will know about. But things like Curamin, it's a mix of curcumin, boswellia, DLPA, and nattokinase. In the head-on studies, as effective as Celebrex, low-dose naltrexone, the antibiotics, cutting out sugar and white flour to decrease inflammation. So sometimes the medicines help, and that's the trick, is to tell when. So I'm going to invite you to trust your instincts, pray on it, see what you get. Again, these things are not necessarily bad or good. Today we'll give you some ideas about who the better ones are and who maybe what things to stay away from.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and to that point as well, if somebody's on medication, I don't encourage any of my clients to stop taking their medication. If they want to, I'm there to help and support them, but I'm not going to encourage them, and I definitely don't want them to stop immediately. I hope they seek their medical doctor advice to slowly taper off and figure out what's going to be the best course of action for them. So that's another.
Here's the trick. As they get better, don't even tell the doctor. Maybe mention once that, hey, I did this and it got me better, because they're just going to start trying to make believe you're crazy. Tell the doctor, Doc, you're brilliant. I feel so much better. You did such a great job. Can I start weaning off some of these medicines now?
Oh, that's the trick, huh?
That's the trick.
That's the trick. Butter them up a little bit first with kindness. That's probably a good way to go. So since we were talking about diabetes and pain and things that started both of our health journeys, what kind of how does your approach to diabetes different from the traditional medical model?
Well, first of all, we'd like in medicine to kind of give the impression that, well, this must be genetic. It's, you're kind of stuck with it. You had a parent with it. You're going to get it. There's nothing you can do besides the medicines. So let me start with a little bit of background. If you look at the medical anthropologists, and this is work out of Harvard, brilliant medical anthropology work, adult diabetes, not childhood, but adult diabetes used to be, if you go back 400 or 500 years ago, exceedingly rare. You almost never saw it. And now you're seeing it in about a third of people that are predicted are going to get it. So that it was very rare means that it's optional. It's not something cast in stone. So number one, diabetes is optional. Number two, simple things you can do, lifestyle, getting more sunshine, going for walks, cutting out sugar and maybe some of the carbs, even a little more of a keto diet, although you don't have to go that strictly, but cutting down the sugar. Simple things can make a big difference. And again, in terms of medications, the medication metformin is excellent. But what you need to know with the metformin, again, some people get gut like nausea, diarrhea kind of stuff, and that means they need to lower the dose and go more slowly. But it is critical to be on a good multivitamin with high amounts of vitamin B12. Or the metformin will make you vitamin B12 deficient. Your doctor will miss it. And Then when you get nerve pain, they'll blame it on the diabetes when it's actually the B12 deficiency. So I like, again, make sure you have at least 100, preferably 500 micrograms of B12 in your multivitamin. I like, if you like tablets, Clinical Essentials. I like the Energy Revitalization drink mix powder, which is brilliant. One drink replaces a whole bunch of pills. I'll have 500 of B12. But whatever you're doing, at least 100 of B12 in your multivitamin. Then the metformin is excellent. I'm going to give you, if you have diabetes, get a piece of paper and a pen. I'm going to give you this simple recipe. And that naturally will bring your glycosylated hemoglobin down good 2 and 2.5%, which is, if you're running a 9, which your doctor's going to scream at you, and you get under 7%, they're going to go, boy, my medicine's good. So here are the natural remedies. Number 1, you want an herb called Hintonia. It's available as Sucantrel D. You can get it at your health food store, Amazon, easy to find. Number 2, add an herb called berberine. I like one called berberine Met-X. The Met-X is 250 milligrams twice a day. Regular berberine is 500 milligrams 3 times a day. Over a year, each of those will bring that glycosylated hemoglobin, the blood test your doctor follows, down by 1%, which is massive. And then for sleep, add a little bit of melatonin, add a lot of melatonin. I take, it's called EP120 sustained release melatonin, 10 milligrams. And what you'll find, it takes a year. It'll go by 3 months, you'll see it starting to drop, and the blood sugars will keep dropping at a year. And many of you will no longer be diabetic by the end of the year of taking it. You can take it along with whatever diabetes medicines you're taking. And again, then remember, what is it? Tell your doctor, oh, you're a genius, you get me so much better. I've been following your lifestyle advice. Can I start weaning? The last medicine I wean is the metformin. That's a good one. But the other ones. So let me give you some thoughts. If you don't mind, I'm going to intersperse other things, because the diabetes, like I said, that one recipe I gave you, 2 minutes. Here's the lifestyle. Here are the herbals. Here's how to handle metformin safely. Bang, we got it. It's not rocket science. It's easy. But you mentioned about the RA, and you sound like you have some gluten sensitivity with it. So for people with chronic pain issues, including many, if not most, neurologic or inflammatory diseases, there's a supplement called PEA, which turns off brain inflammation. It's a palmitoyl ethanolamide. Actually, I have a box right here. It's a healthy inflammation response. It's a high absorption one. But I don't care what kind of chronic pain, rheumatoid arthritis, muscle pain, back pain, migraines. If you look at the research, all these different chronic diseases, especially if you have a lot of sensitivities, because you brought up the gluten sensitivity, people with mast cell activation syndrome, basically sensitive to all kinds of stuff, who have a chronic inflammatory disease, PEA, healthy inflammation response, 2 a night, 600 milligrams a night, you will see nothing for 2 to 3 months. And then suddenly it turns off a lot of this inflammatory, the pain, and the sensitivity issues. It's quite remarkable. That or low-dose naltrexone is a medication that has a similar effect, although maybe not as good. But just know there's a lot you can do that your doctor doesn't know about.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to look up that PEA, because I'm not familiar with that one. I've not heard of that one, and I'm definitely curious just to read about it and learn about it. I'm a little nerdy like that myself sometimes.
Email me. My email address is fatigue, FATIGUE, DOC, @gmail.com. And just ask for the PEA information sheet. Or for those of you with neuropathic pain, ask for the neuropathy chapter from my book. Or for those of you with diabetes who would like, ask for the free diabetes information sheet. Happy to just go ahead and send this out to you, because I know we're rattling off a lot of stuff like that. And this is not meant for you to be like memorizing all this. You can't. At least you can go back and play the show if you like. But this is all written out in the information sheets. So just make a note, ask for the sheet, at fatiguedoc@gmail.com.
That's great. People will be very happy, especially if they're driving. They can go back and listen to this when they're stopped or something.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you mentioned earlier how, as far as diabetes go, a lot of people think that, like you said, people just think that or automatically assume that, oh, my dad had it, so that means I'm going to get it. Or my grandma had it, my mom had it, so that means I'm going to get it. And I was telling one of my clients once that if you stop and think about it, now, yes, I'm not saying that there can't be a genetic predisposition for just about anything. But if you stop and think about it, what do? You all hang out. You all eat a lot of the same. You grew up eating some of the same foods. You grew up doing some of the same habits. There was quite a time in my family where we would sit around and play cards. And every time we sat around and played cards and games, we ate Smarties, which are these little candies. And we would all eat them. And I'm not talking like one or two. I mean, we would eat a lot of Smarties, which it's all basically just pure sugar. So if you grow up in an environment like that and you're constantly eating and drinking all of the same foods because that's what you're just used to and accustomed, and then of course once you move out of the house, you're still eating some of those same foods because now you're addicted and you've had them for multiple years. And then you go back home to hang out at the holiday functions or you see them every once in a while. You're still doing a lot of the same things. That to me is what I think that people don't really correlate the two. They just assume genetics because my parents had it, or genetics because my aunt and everybody else in that family had it. They don't think about the habits and the things that we pick up from being in the same family and around a lot of the same people all the times.
Mm-hmm. And, it's a really good point. And there is a genetic component. So genetics doesn't mean you're going to get this.
Right.
Genetics means that you have a disposition, and therefore you want to take simple measures like increasing fiber, cutting down sugar instead of the Smarties, have something that's a protein kind of a snack. There's all kinds of things. Also means keep your weight healthy. The genetics for diabetes tendency is not a curse. It is a blessing if you happen to be in an indigenous culture where there is a lot of feast and famine. The people who have that tendency to be able to pack on a little bit of weight survived when the famine hit. And then they lost the weight, but they were very active, so it was healthy. But when you're sitting having 140 pounds of sugar per year, which is the American average, with a bunch of Twinkies and Ho-Hos, and getting no exercise and inside all day, that's when it turns from a survival gift, into diabetes.
Yeah. Well, and nowadays I look at everything as information. And so, okay, so if my dad had it and my grandfather had it, okay, what kind of information does that tell me? Okay, what choices can I make to either contribute to that or hopefully steer as far away from it for as long as possible as, So hopefully people can think about, oh, that's just information,
Yeah. If you live in an area that's hurricane prone, you build for that.
Right.
If you live in an area that's drought prone, you get information so you know what your strengths, weaknesses, what your body needs, what's optimal. Because in the media out there, you're going to see all this stuff. It's just trying to make you afraid of everybody and hate everybody. It's just, it's horrible. No. When you see people doing that, be afraid of this, be afraid of that, hate that, turn it off.
Yeah.
Turn it off. But if you have somebody who says, look, okay, if you have this tendency, you have a genetic for this, okay, here's what you do. If you have the genetic tendency to this, that's information. Your body's saying, okay, here's what you can do to give your body what it needs, because they're all different. We have different needs, strengths, weaknesses, and when you're right on the mark, that genetic medical history is information. It can guide you on not how to cut out everything in your life and be afraid, but how to do the things that strengthen you so you can thrive no matter what.
Right. Right. Well, and because I'm definitely all about brain health, especially now because I've overcome a lot of my life. And it's so critical, and I think that people don't realize that it's yes, it's our brain, but it's literally part of our body, and it helps our body function and work properly and well. And we want it to work well so the rest of our body can work well.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of effect does diabetes have on our brain health, either in the immediate or the long term?
Okay, so part one, the diabetes in adults is called insulin resistance, blah, 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 blah. But that's what happens is we get so much sugar in our body that our cells say, like, it's like flooding the motor. It's just like, stop it. And it just turns off the insulin so it doesn't work. And then you pack on pounds. I mean, we can spend hours explaining, but that's basically what it is. It's insulin resistance is response to too much sugar. The sugar is the fuel that your cells use for energy. Insulin, it's kind of like you have furnaces in your cells that burn sugar for energy. And the insulin is the key that opens up the furnace. So you can go ahead and pop the sugar molecules in and burn them for energy at a nice steady rate. You don't want to flood the motor. You don't want too much at once. What happens now when you're insulin resistant, when you have diabetes? Sugar can't get into the cells to be burned for energy, so it builds up in the blood. That means your brain cells are getting starved for energy. And so at the same time, they're starving for energy while gasoline or the sugar is flooding your system. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. So number one, you're starving your brains for the energy. Number two, you're increasing the tendency to inflammation, which is not good for the brains. Then when you get pain, we talked about using the PEA for anybody with chronic pain. Why? Because anything that irritates the brain cells, whether it's an autoimmune disease, whether it's chronic pain, any of a number of things, there are little gardeners. These are cells that take care of the brain cells called microglia cells. These are the gardeners. Think of them as kind of with a hayseed in their mouth or a little thing, a hat, and just kind of mellow going through the gardens, weeding. But say suddenly they see a bunch of weevils growing or weeds or whatever. They go from being mild-mannered to being furious, and they're out weeding and digging out all this stuff. Well, any chronic infection like long COVID, any of a number of infections, a lot of any chronic inflammation like rheumatoid arthritis and other things, any chronic pain, all of these are overwhelming the brain, and those cells go wild. Which in the beginning it's good to have somebody going and weeding, but suddenly they're going after everything becomes kind of caught up in the crossfire. And that's why the PEA or the medication there's medicine called naltrexone. Can't use it if you're on narcotics because it blocks the narcotic, and use your regular dose does nothing. But if you use almost a homeopathic dose, tiny, it shuts down chronic pain and inflammation. It turns off those microglial mad gardener cells. The PEA will do the same thing. They're just coming out from a different thing. So the bottom line is there are ways to calm down the inflammation and irritation of the brain that comes from so many different things. So when you talk about brain health, the diabetes and the chronic diabetes nerve pain, diabetic neuropathy, triggers is called microglial activation. Basically, it makes the gardeners in the cell and the brain go a little wild, and they need to be calmed down, and then the brain works better. I don't know if that's understandable if I just went into medical gibberish, but anyway.
No, that's great. I loved the analogy of the little medical gardener because it does fit it perfectly, and I think it's going to help people really kind of understand, especially when you started off where he's got the hayseed hanging in his mouth. We all can envision that guy who's there to help and working well, and then yes, you can envision as well. Once something goes wrong, everything just it's like they're pulling everything, and you don't always want them to pull everything. You just want them to do the one thing instead of
balance.
Everything. Yeah.
And there's a time for them to go a little wild. But the problem is it's like a little hyperactive kid. They have trouble settling down. And they need help from us to settle down. Yeah.
Well, and just now you touched on the neuropathy as well, and that's how my husband and I kind of first came familiar with you too, because we had got your book, Diabetes is Optional, and we're going to put that image of your book in our. He'll flash it up on the screen for the people as well, but yeah, he started off with foot pain and kind of never really thought about it being part of diabetes. He just thought, you're getting older and this is now his lot in life and this is what's going to happen. And then when he was diagnosed with diabetes, a lot of the dots started connecting, and he started recognizing certain things. And yeah, so luckily, we've now since reversed his diabetes. We kind of did it fairly quickly because we did a complete 180 on a lot of our diet and lifestyle. But yeah, every once in a while, like when he eats grapes, for example, it's still the high sugars in the grapes that he notices. All of a sudden, his feet will start to tingle sometimes. But other than that, he doesn't have any of the long-term adverse effects. So tell us a little bit about what can happen with neuropathy. And I'd like to hope that people get a little bit of encouragement with that as well, because I think the longer you leave things go, the worse obviously things are going to be, So if you don't have too much of it now, if you start making changes, you might get lucky with stopping reversing.
Here's the thing. So we talked about diabetes at its core being an energy crisis, because the sugar can't get into the cells to get burnt for fuel. Then they build up and damage the tissues and the blood cells. So you get this double whammy. And for those of you with pain in general, most pain is either caused by inadequate energy or by inflammation. Now, there's 7 main kinds of pain, and we can go through other things. But if you look at rheumatoid arthritis, for example, you get the inflammation, and then you get the secondary pain, and then you get the brain pain from microglial Gardner cells. But low energy, if you think about, say when you do a heavy workout, do your muscles go limp or do they go tight? So you come home after a heavy day's work, do you say, honey, my muscles are all loose and limp? Or do you say, hey, can you give me a shoulder rub? They're all tight. The muscles are like spring. When you don't have enough energy, they get locked in the shortened position. Right. Now, nerve cells, interestingly, the recent research is showing that nerve pain is also associated with low energy in the nerves. What happens is that there's a little pacemaker, just like a heart has it, that makes the heart fire. There are pacemakers in nerve cells that fire them so that they go and do the job and send the signal. It's like an on-off switch. It kind of goes, or a little button that says, okay, send that signal. But it keeps it. If you don't have energy, that button keeps saying, and then it hurts. Those nerves start to hurt because you have the energy deficiency. So things that increase energy in general, and I will use the vitamin powder, the energy revitalization drink mix, a really good way to start with that. But when you see this chronic nerve pain, number one, you want to bring the blood sugar down, you want to increase insulin sensitivity, blah, 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 do the things we talked about. Instead of the Diabetes is Optional book, for most of you who have trouble controlling your sugar, I'm going to recommend a different book of mine, which is to beat sugar. It's actually the complete guide to beating sugar addiction now, or the complete guide to beating sugar addiction. There's been so many volumes, they keep changing the name, editions of it. So that will help you get off of sugar without going through withdrawal, and it'll show you how to keep your pleasure with cutting back to sugar. For those of you with pain or fatigue, I would get the book From Fatigue to Fantastic. Anybody with chronic pain, a third of that book is about pain relief, and it'll help with that. You can email me for a chapter on neuropathy or nerve pain, and I'll say here are the natural things. We'll go through all this too, but I just want you to know while you're listening that you don't have to scribble frantically. Just email me at fatiguedoc@gmail.com, and you can ask. The information sheets are free, and I'll send you the chapter on neuropathy from my book. So, what do you do about neuropathy? Neuropathy, it's a medical word, sucks. It's your husband's it's not fun, and it is treatable, but doctors are not taught how to treat it. It's funny. And doctors are not taught about pain management. You know what we're taught? We're taught give ibuprofen family medications and Tylenol, and don't let them fool you into giving narcotics, unless they have cancer. Oh, and if there's something you can operate on profitably, that's unspoken, to relieve the pain, go for it. Okay, but that's about it. And you wonder why almost a quarter of Americans are in chronic pain. Mm-hmm. And for neuropathy, ibuprofen is doing nothing for that. And now they're saying, maybe the epilepsy drugs will help, and they give, some gabapentin, which is a good drug for neuropathy. And then the regulatory agencies say, we want $400 million before you can advertise using this medication to a regulatory fee. Well, I shouldn't even go here. It's just medicines that are cheap. They're illegal to promote cheap things in this country. And I'm hoping that will change now with the new administration. So that your doctor, I know I'm repeating myself. When you go to the doctor and the doctor says, gee, I'm sorry, I can't help you, and treats you like you're a drug addict because you're saying, I still have pain, do something. Tell them thank you. Ask for the information. Go find a doctor who does know. Doctors, there's pain specialist doctors. They're called physical medicine rehabilitation. They're more likely to know how to help. There's two kinds. There's ones that started with internal medicine, and they're more likely to use medications and even maybe natural things or needle trigger point injections. The ones who started as anesthesiologists, they're wanting to do nerve injections and implant brain pumps and stuff like that, because that's where they're coming from. So different people have different needs. Just know that there are doctors that can help you. But what do you do on your own? So, number one, lipoic acid. These are things you can get anywhere. Health food stores, Amazon, easy to find, cheap. So, lipoic acid, and 300 milligrams twice a day. There's a product called Healthy Feet and Nerves. Quite good for nerve pain. All of these things you want to give them 3 months. Nerves take a while to heal. Acetyl L-carnitine, not L-carnitine, but acetyl L-carnitine, 1 gram twice a day, especially for pain from nerve pain, not just from diabetes, but from chemotherapy. Research shows that really helps quite a bit. You give these things the 3 months to work, they can be really helpful. Severe chronic nerve pain, add the PEA, healthy inflammation response. Again, that turns off the gardeners that have gone wild with chronic pain. The microglial activation. So these are natural things. And again, I would do the good multivitamin. You don't want too much vitamin B6. 50 milligrams, 45 milligrams a day is perfect. Over that can actually worsen nerve pain. But there's energy revitalization drink mix, blah, blah, blah. But see, now what you've done is you've given a backdrop where the nerves have what they need to heal. They have all the nutrients, the magnesium, B vitamins they need to heal. They've got lipoic acid, which is an antioxidant. You're turning off the brain inflammation with the PEA. And you're taking care of the B12 deficiency that may have come from the metformin or just from 6% of our country of adults are vitamin B12 deficient severely, despite totally normal blood tests, because it misses the cause. And that causes nerve pain, blah, blah, blah. Simple things you mentioned. You go ahead and you feed your body what it needs to heal itself. And then there's over 2 dozen medications that can help nerve pain. But your doctor is only hearing about the real expensive ones. And since the last one of those went off patent, they're not hearing much about anything. Because it went from being $8 a pill to cheap.
Well, and I know that definitely B vitamins, and you mentioned magnesium as well. Those are some of the top ones that a lot of people can be very deficient in. Unfortunately, I'm a little deficient in B12 right now myself, but I'm going through some struggles, even though I'm taking it. Yeah, my body's having trouble holding on to it, but I'm struggling with Lyme. So I've had a few other issues that I'm kind of working through myself right now.
Be careful that the Lyme is kind of, if you have trouble with widespread pain, brain fog, fatigue, and the paradox of trouble sleeping despite being exhausted. When you're exhausted, you sleep all day and all night. But when you have exhaustion and can't fall and stay asleep, that's fibromyalgia. That's an energy crisis that trips a circuit breaker called the hypothalamus that controls sleep, hormones, a whole bunch of things. It's a key circuit breaker. There's no test for it. So when people go to the doctor says, I don't know what's wrong with you, you're crazy. Okay, so you go to 8 doctors who do that. Then you finally have one. By the way, a third of people with rheumatoid arthritis or most major autoimmune diseases will get a secondary fibromyalgia. Look this up in the research. The research is really clear with this, but the doctors miss it because there's no test for it. There's on my website, vitality101.com, there's a simple free 5-minute quiz that'll tell you if you have CFS, fibromyalgia, or even for long COVID. But what happens then, Wendy, is people go to so many doctors that imply, I don't know what's wrong with you, so you're crazy, that you finally have somebody who says, well, you're tired, achy, brain fog, can't sleep, right? You ache all over, and you go like, has my husband been ratting me out? And then they can say, well, you have. And they can fill in the blank and put anything after that, and they will use a test. These are really good doctors that are positive for everybody. The Lyme test, that's from regular labs. How did the British Medical, I think Lancet or British Medical Journal said that you may as well flip a coin. They're just meaningless. They're negative on most people who have Lyme disease. But, and the company doesn't like when I say this, but the most common test used by Lyme doctors and Lyme literate doctors is, I've seen 2 people in 30 years who have been negative.
Yeah,
so,
most doctors don't. They just do the screening. They don't do a real good actual test.
Well, the problem with the actual test is have your husband do it. I know it's $500 or something. Or have one of the healthiest people you know, have 2 of them do it. I bet you at least one of the 2 will be positive.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what that means is that, yes, you should be addressing Lyme. Yes, the chronic antibiotics, if they help, can help. Doxycycline, though, it turns off those gardeners. It will work. So what I'm saying is that be careful with the Lyme diagnosis. I'm not saying you don't have it. And I am saying that most of the doctors who will give you that diagnosis know what they are doing way better than most of the other doctors you're going to meet. But realize, also look at the fibromyalgia component. Treat the whole. Our research shows that when you have the tired, achy, brain fog, can't sleep, if you treat with Shine, sleep, hormones despite normal tests, addressing infections, nutrition, including B12, iron, and other deficiencies with normal tests, and exercise as able, 91% of people improve on average 90% increase in quality of life. Randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. So, treat the Lyme. But Lyme, just like COVID, causes a secondary fibromyalgia. Treat that too.
Yeah. Can you go over that acronym again, SHINE? Because I think that's great for a lot of people to kind of grasp hold of. And it's a good, for no matter what you have, really. SHINE is a great acronym. So can you go or repeat that for us again?
SHINE is the acronym for how to increase energy production in the body. And if you have the paradox of exhausted and can't sleep, especially if you have the brain fog and you have widespread pain, email me for the fatigue information sheets. And what we'll talk about is Shine. I'll talk about the supplements that really can help double your energy easily, while also helping the other things. Shine, sleep. If you don't sleep, you're going to be in pain, and the chronic pain won't go away if you're not getting your sleep. You're saying, but I can't fall asleep or stay asleep because the sleep circuit, the hypothalamus, that circuit breaker, is suppressed because of the disease. Shine turns the circuit breaker back on. The book From Fatigue is fantastic. We'll go through natural things. We talk about the EP120 melatonin. I use that in herbal mix called Revitalizing Sleep Formula. Mix of 6 herbs. Then there's essential oils, blah, 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 terrific seeds. in the thousands of people I've successfully treated for fibromyalgia, I can count on my fingers and toes how many I haven't been able to get to good, solid sleep. So for those of you who say, but I can't sleep, there's no way I can get my 8 hours sleep a night. Yes, you can. The book will tell you how. So sleep, hormones. Which hormones? This circuit controls all of them. Thyroid. So tired, achy, brain fog, tired, achy, weight gain, cold intolerance. That's low thyroid, even if the tests are normal. Adrenal. If you get irritable when hungry, you get hangry. It's the opposite of diabetes, kind of, although they're related. You keep dropping your blood sugar. So, if when you get irritable, let your honey know, don't hug me when I get irritable. Don't try to console me, because I will kill you. Just feed me. Okay, that's low adrenal. Adrenal stress end. Very good. I'm a little slow to use adrenal products in diabetes, although I will when they're needed. But for those who get irritable when hungry, hangry, I use Adrenaplex. Smooths it right out. Perimenopause. If right around your menses, I'm not talking about PMS. How did Dolly Parton say, what's the difference between PMS and menopause? PMS is when you're afraid the woman's going to kill you, and menopause is when the woman will make you want to kill yourself. It's kind of like, So Dolly's wonderful. She's low. So how do you tell if you're going through menopause? Because, when your periods stop, that's obvious. But how about just 5 to 12 years before, when you're estrogen deficient and the blood tests are normal? Because that's what the research shows it is. If you find that your symptoms are worse around your menses, not the irritability, but tired, achy, headaches, can't sleep, that's time to consider the bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. So hormones across the board, the test will miss them. Testing is a little helpful, but it just misses a lot of things. So infections, Lyme disease, chronic antibiotic sensitive infections, candida or fungal infections, long COVID. There's a host of different infections. Again, the tests got to be careful in how you interpret them. So I'm not saying it's that Lyme isn't a very real devastating thing. I'm just saying, take the test with a grain of salt. Treat the Lyme, but don't get too caught up in the tests. Treat clinically. Give the treatments. Go to a Lyme literate doctor, not a Lyme illiterate tweet. Or, I don't want to say what. I don't know what's wrong with you. You're crazy. I keep saying that. That's abusive. That's not acceptable. One doctor to do that. And then Anna's Nutrition. Start with the Energy Revitalization System vitamin powder, HRG80 red ginseng. We did a study on that increased energy dramatically. And there's just so many things you can do. But email me for the fatigue information sheet or fibromyalgia, and I'll just send it off to you.
Okay.
Now you see how I got my college nickname of Rambling Jack. Okay, so
what about E? You did SHIT?
E is exercise as able. So the thing is, for most people, and diabetes and the rest, you want to go for walks in the sunshine, because you need both the sunshine and, which is less RA with sunshine, less MS with sunshine, autoimmune diseases. Low sunshine, low vitamin D equals more autoimmune disease. You want to get the exercise in the sunshine. But in fibromyalgia, people have, they can't make enough exercise, energy to exercise. So they get post-exertional malaise. They crash and burn and may be bedridden for 2 days after. So the E is exercise as able. For those of you who find that you can't exercise because it wipes you out, ask me for the exercise information sheet. How to exercise in fibromyalgia if you get wiped out with exercise, and I'll attach that, and it'll just tell you, okay, if you can't exercise standing up because the blood rushes to your feet and stay there, you'll find that you can do it on a horizontal bike, or things you can do lying down that will start you, and how to start even just a little bit of walking. And it isn't so. The exercise information sheet is just, it's all laid out there. I'm more giving you a table of contents here than wanting you to memorize a book. So just know this information's available, where to find it. A lot of it's free.
Well, and that's great that you mentioned exercise as able, because Some people may even say, "Oh, I have pain. How can I can't exercise. I'm in too much pain." And several episodes ago, I had someone who did yoga. And so she does a lot of chair yoga for people as well. And I said, that's great, because some people think that because they're in a wheelchair or they can't walk around as well as other people. To me, there's always something that you could do. So if you have a lot of pain in your legs, is there something you can do with your arms? There's something, like you said, as you're able, and hopefully as your pain decreases, you'll be able to exercise a little bit more or increase some of that as well.
Yes, and as you do the SHINE protocol, energy production skyrockets. And about 10 to 12 weeks into it, you can start conditioning again, slowly, instead of crashing when you exercise.
Well, I'm definitely glad that you gave the 10 to 12 weeks as well, because in the society that we live in today, we all want things now. And so sometimes if you hear a number, you have a goal that you can, I can last 10 to 12 weeks. And hopefully around 10 or 12 weeks, if you don't notice anything before then, you'll start to think, okay, any day now it's going to start to happen. And then hopefully any day it does start to happen.
It does. Like I say, I was homeless with this. I mean, it knocked me out of med school. So I understand what's going through with this. It's so treatable. It's just, we're not lacking effective treatment for neuropathy, diabetes, fibromyalgia, long COVID. All of these are really treatable. What's lacking is physician education. And I'm a healer and a teacher. That's my passion. So happy to be teaching with you today, Wendy.
Well, I'm happy that you're here as well. And as we're wrapping up, what kind of advice would you give somebody for who kind of feels overwhelmed either by diabetes or by their fibromyalgia? Because I know that a lot of people suffer from that. Unfortunately, it's too common. I think it shouldn't be as common as it is, but unfortunately it is.
That's what it is.
So what kind of advice would you give for someone who feels kind of overwhelmed by managing or dealing with some of that? Maybe just you have a bit of advice to just get started?
Well, what I give in the information sheets is just that. So, there's hundreds of treatments that can help. Gee, that's nice. What do I start with? I start with the Energy Revitalization System drink mix. Add in HRG80 red ginseng. And then I'll add in either Smart Energy System or Coenzyme Q10, a high absorption chewable. Most people find the first 3 or 4 will double their energy. Our studies show that these also decrease pain. It's funny, I had one guy, when I used to live on the Chesapeake Bay in Annapolis, and I was walking down the bay, and this guy's walking down the street, and across the street, and he's looking at me, and I'm kind of walking away, and he's following me, and finally he weaves through traffic, runs across the street, looks at me, says, "You're Dr. Teitelbaum, aren't you?" I said, "Uh-huh," and he lifts me up in this big bear hug, and I go like, "We haven't even been introduced to how to first date yet, put me down, please." And he says, "Oh, sorry, I had horrible back pain for decades, nothing ever helped it, and I developed the Energy Revitalization drink mix. My royalties go to charity for these things that I designed." So and he said, my back pain went away after I did that. B vitamins and magnesium, just like we were saying. And his pain of decades went away after a month or 2. And he just wanted to thank me. So start with a good multivitamin, with high, not the RDAs, the ridiculous dietary allowances, but the optimal levels. And you'd be amazed the pain, the energy, simple differences that can make. And then start to cut loose things you don't enjoy that you're doing because you think you should. God will forgive you. He really will.
Yeah, I think that we don't place enough importance on ourselves, really. We place too much importance on some other external things for happiness rather than things that we can easily find and get for ourselves, or putting ourselves first. In some situations. When you're in an airplane, you got to put your own oxygen mask on before you can help somebody else. So if you're going to put yourself first for some things and taking care of yourself, just simple taking care of yourself, and alleviating some of that pain is probably the best thing you can do for your family. Let alone, you're definitely yourself, but that's going to only help your family.
And some of us are taught to feel guilty like it's a weakness. to use what you need to get pain-free? It's not. Treat the root causes of the pain. It's like an oil light on your dashboard. Instead of smashing out the oil light or put a Band-Aid like most doctors do, put oil in the car. Oil light goes out. Today we talked about how to give your body what it needs so the pain goes away and the diabetes goes away. But it's really okay in the interim to do what you need to be comfortable while you're addressing the root causes.
Right. That's definitely well said. Yes, perfect. So since we're talking about that, at the end of every episode, I always like to ask my guest for their don't miss this moment. It'd be kind of the one key takeaway or the main thing that they would want the listener to remember. What would your don't miss this moment be from this conversation?
Okay. There's this Jewish kid, because I'm one, and, he said, people ask him, how do you know, the devil doesn't come in and say, I'm the devil, and he says, look, by their fruits will you know them. So see what you're doing. Is it working? Is it not? If it's not, start to let go of the things that aren't working. See what feels good to you. Go in prayer. See what moves you. Not your mind negative chatter. That's not how God talks to us. See what moves you, what makes your heart sing. And start to follow that to see what does work for you. Because by their fruits, you'll know them.
I love that. That's a perfect way to end today. So I know that throughout the conversation, you kind of mentioned where people can find you or follow you or email you. So why don't you tell them right now? Because I will put even your Facebook. I'll put the links to all that in the show notes. But why don't you tell them where they can find you and follow you?
Well, vitality101.com for those who have fibromyalgia. You can email me at fatiguedoc@gmail.com for the information sheets. Just let me know what specifically you got, so I know what sheets to give you. My book, From Fatigue to Fantastic, most of you will find that'll change your lives because it's the whole gamut of things, and it's really a good way for places to begin. And just watch on TV, radio. Keep your eyes open. You'll see me.
Yeah, you were in quite a few webinars that I've taken and symposiums over the years, so you've made your way around.
I like teaching. I like healing.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest today. It was my honor and my pleasure.
Likewise, Wendy and everybody, you can get a life you love. You can get pain-free. You can feel fantastic. So, aloha, everybody.
If you want to continue learning and hearing all things nutrition for your mind, body, and soul, click like, subscribe, or favorite me on whatever podcast platform you use, or you can find me at ForgivenNutritionist.com. This podcast was designed to educate, inspire, and empower you to achieve your health and wellness goals. It is not meant to diagnose or treat any illness or medical condition or take the place of any treatments from your current healthcare providers.